Hello guys. So what we're going to be doing on this episode is going to be explaining the functions here in arrays, right? And we're going to do that using numbers. So I'm going to initialize an array just like we have discussed in our previous video, and I'm going to just set up some number here, and we're going to go ahead and build a really long section. And I'll just number them straightforward. There's a much easier way of doing this, but I don't want to explain it right now because I just I want you guys to understand the concept we're doing right now. So I'm gonna go up to, let's say, 14. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so what we're gonna be doing is we are going to be taking this line and manipulating it to explain things. So I'm gonna go to my array. First thing you could do is get an array size, right? So that's the easiest function I can ever explain, array size. You just connect this to that, and there you go. Now the output of this is going to be the array size. Now I need to see this, right? So I need to create an indicator. If you right click, create indicator, there it is. Double click that, it takes you out to the front panel, and this is the size. Now I'm going to run the program, and you can see the size is 14. Very simple, very straightforward. Now what if I want to see this, the array? I can right click, create an indicator as well, because this was created as a constant within the system. That's very important, right? So there we go. Here's my array, and I can actually adjust this and manipulate it however I want, and I'm going to do it this way, and I'm going to run it. So there we go. So the array size is 14, right? Which is perfect because it matches up with what my number said, because I'm numbering from 1. Now remember, the indexing, this is the size. As I said in my last video, if you missed it, the position starts from 0. So even though my size is 14, and I'll do this experimentally so you can see, the position of the last number, which I'm going to call 21 right now, just to get a different number than 14, so this won't be confusing, right? So these numbers, all of them, can be just about anything. Right, I have them set to straightforward numbers to make this easier, but there we go. Now they're just kind of randomized. So let's say I want to get the last number. How would I do that? Well, go back to the code. What we would use is something called index. Now something I want to remind you guys is that if you click Ctrl and H, you get this help menu, which gives you help on anything you're clicking on. So my index just gives me the quick help of what wires I need to plug in. Plus this little sign here means that I can expand this as necessary. Now in the indexing system, what this means is that I can get out of, okay, so what index means, as you can see here, returns the element or subarray of a dimensional array at index. So it brings back the number or the data at the position that I specify. So I'm going to connect this to the main array. So the array that I'm dealing with is this big orange line here. And then I need to tell it, okay, what do I want it to bring out? Now the default is index 0. The default is going to be the first number, right? And it's going to come out here. So if I right click, create indicator for this, this here is going to show me the first number in the sequence automatically. There it is, right? Now if I go back here in the index, I can right click, create a constant if I want to stay within the code, and I can tell it, okay, bring me the 3 indexed element. Now the 3 indexed element, keep in mind, is actually the 4th number, okay? And if we go here and we run this, you'll look at this and you'll see this is number 4, right? 3 is number 4. If you guys noticed, the numbers just changed. And the reason is this is an indicator, not a control. This is an output, not an input. The constant's in here, so I need to actually change the numbers that I put in here, right? So let me just give them random big numbers, all of them. 13 and 10. There we go. Now they all have awkward numbers, hopefully. We can actually have a random number generator do this. Okay, I don't want to save. So now when I run this, this will make, so there we go. So this here showing me the 4th number, which is 34. Now, let's take this a step further. Let's say, okay, I don't want to do this as a constant. What if I want to do it as a control? Create control. Now, it has created a control out here for this. So I tell it here what my index is. So I want the 5 index 5. And then I run it. Gives me 234 right here, which is number 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because it counts from 0, right? Well, let's say you want to get fancy with your code, and you know that people don't usually count from 0. They usually count from 1. Well, I could add a function here and take this number and subtract it by 1. So if you right-click anywhere, you go to numeric, there is a function here called decrement, which does -1. And now, by looking at this, it just takes x and does x minus 1. So if I take in this input, do -1, put it out here, now it shows me this error wire because this cannot loop back on itself. So there we go. Now that is fixed. And now it takes the index, subtracts 1, and puts it in here, which will, so basically a person who puts in, and I'm going to change the name to which position, whatever. You can play around with that later. So there we go. So if I want the 5th position, right, it's going to give me the 5th position, which is 23. And let's run that. And there we go. It gave me the 5th position. Now, I'm going to create an indicator right here. Create indicator of the x minus 1. And now out here, these could be anywhere. It does not matter. Order does not matter. And now I'm just putting it here just to show you what's going on inside the code. So basically, what ends up happening is I tell it I want number 5. It does -1 and sets this to 4, and then comes here to get number 4, and that's going to be 23. So if I want position 7, go. There it is, 32. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is 32. Oh wow, I just realized this is 32 as well. Okay, let's do another number. Let's do something simple. Let's do 2. There we go. Position 2 is 324, that's right. But for the code, we had to convert this 2 into a 1, because this 324 is actually a 1, because this is 0, not 1. Okay, I'm not going to get too far into this. I hope this made sense. What I do want to explain other than this is how this stretching works. Now I stretched it to 2. So now I can get 2 pieces of data out of this. Create a constant, and I'm going to do this as 2 again, and then create an indicator. So now what I have done in the same piece of code, I am getting 2 numbers, right? So here's my second number from the same piece, and this is the position 2. Now remember, I put 2 in the conventional index method, not -1, so it gave me 223 right here. So this is something you could do, and you can do this as many times as you want to get as many specific data as you want. And this could, each one of these could come from a complex mathematical equation or whatever else you have. The alternative, so to speak, would be that instead of doing this, instead of putting them all into one function, I could come here and get another function, connect the same one to it, connect this to and this one, and that will give me the same. Nothing is going to change at this point, right? The only difference is that my code is a little more complicated because I'm using 2 of these when I can just as easily use 1 of them. So why use 2 of them, right? So that's something to consider in your code to keep it elegant. So now I'm getting 2 outputs, 2 different things coming out of here. And that's how the indexing works. Now I want to talk about something that, let's say I want to get the last element, right? And I'm going to create an indicator again in here. And I want to get the last element out of this. So now I need to tell it where is it. This is the array size, right? This is the size of my array. If I connect the size of my array to this point, what I will get is going to be an interesting number. What do you guys think you're going to get? You're obviously not going to get this last number. You're going to get this one. But what is this? Because this was not initialized. That is 0. They will all be zeros in case of numbers. You have to keep that in mind. We'll get into some cases where you get negative numbers and you can use those in coding, but whenever you try to get something that has not been initialized in numbers, you're going to get a 0. So what I need to do here is I need to add a -1 to the array size, right? Before this comes back down here, connects to that. I need to add a -1, and now this will always give me the last number, no matter what it is or where it is, right? So this is the proper coding, if you will. Instead of saying I want position, okay, so let's come here, and if I say I want position 13, right, and if I run it, these two are the same. These two are giving the same data, but this code is independent, right? This code requires input, right? So here I have to tell it 13. So if I change this and add another number, 456, and I run the code, you will see that this gave me the last number, but this one is stuck because I need to come back and edit it, which I don't want to do every single time. So that is something to consider here. Alright, let's move on. So the next thing is going to be replacing subsets. So replacing is pretty easy. You just, first I have to tell it which array am I dealing with. I'm dealing with this array. And then it's only asking for two things, and I can extend this as well. Now, extending this, as you can see, there's a line here. And what's happening is now I can do multiple replacements, right? So that's what's going on. I'm only going to do one replacement. And it's asking for two things, the index and the new element. So where and what, right? So I can come here and say, okay, you know what? I want to replace if you want to replace the first number, the default is going to be index 0. So let's say, okay, I want to replace the first number. I'm not going to put anything here. Now it asks, what do I want to replace it with? Okay, well, I could come here and take that number from here, for example, right? Remember, we set the position. So let's say I connect this to whatever I'm doing next, and I'm replacing the first position with the number I specify here, right? And so that means what happens is when I run the code, and I'm going to run it, but we won't see any difference, is that position 2, 324, it's going to replace this number with 324. It actually already did that, but we can't see it because we did not create an output for it. And I'm going to do that right now. Create an indicator. I want to see what you're talking about. And I'm going to, oh, sorry. And I'm going to put this down here and stretch it. So when I run this, you will see that, oh, it replaced it with a 1. This is very interesting. Why do, oh, huh. Okay, so here's our first error. It replaced it with this number, not this number. So that was my mistake. So I connected this to here, which is the x minus 1, where I needed to connect it to the number coming out of here. So this element is this. So if I double click this number, it's over here. So what I need to do is I need to connect this to that and get rid of this wire. There we go. So now it will do it the way I was discussing. The code gets complicated and you can simplify it greatly by moving things around. But I'm not going to do that now. It doesn't matter. I'm just explaining what things do. It doesn't matter how I know what they do. But we could, for example, here see this index. We could take this and replace the last number, for example, instead of the first. Let's do that. So if I come here and I take this and I want to replace the last position with the number chosen by this control, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of all this because we just don't want them anymore. And so this is the size, I'll leave that there, and this is the initial array, I'll leave that there. And then I can move this up here. It's not quite matter. And there we go, there we go. You'll see what I'm doing in a second. By rearranging, you are able to bypass so many things and simplify your code immensely. Immense simplification systems. So whatever you want to call them. There we go. So now everything is pretty straightforward, as you can see. Right? I hope you guys notice how everything is now very straightforward, directly happening kind of system. instead of the way it was. Right? There we go. So it's very straightforward, very simple. There we go. So what's going on is the number comes here, we get its size, subtracted by 1, goes here, and then here it goes up, gives this array, comes here, enters the array, gives me the output. This is the element I chose. I chose to put it at the last location always. This is the new array that I have. There we go. And if I run it, you'll see that now the last one has been replaced from this to 324 right there. Now let's say I don't care about the size. Let's just delete that. We all understand how the size works now. So there we go. I am able to further simplify this. And if I could just do that, there we go. And there we go. So you can keep simplifying, keep making this more and more compact and more to your liking and more customized and more everything, right? And that is something that I really like about LabView's is visual component that it gives you to your code, which makes it much more fun and interesting. I don't want this. There we go. I'm not gonna sit and do this the whole episode. I'm just demonstrating what could be done with a little organization, right? So here's my first array, here's my new array. There we go. So now I built this code, which starts from a constant array and then does this manipulation to it and then ends up over here. And that's beautiful. There we go. Let's run this again. There we go. The last number has been replaced by 324. Now if I want to replace it by something else, let's say by 234, which in my which position is 6. Remember, we added the -1 feature. Now it replaces this with 234 and becomes 234. Pretty cool, huh? Hopefully you guys are finding it this pretty cool, because I am. Alright, let's go to the next one. The next one is insert into array, which basically works the same way except for a slight difference in that it inserts it, which means that if we open up the help, which means that all the other things are going to be stretched to make space for it. So let's say we take in our initial array and I want to add at the let's pick a middle position, create a constant. Let's say I want to add at the, let's do 2 so it's easy to find. And what do I want to add? Well, I'm just gonna add that same number that I chose already, and then I want to see what this looks like. Create an indicator. Okay, instead of creating, I'm gonna do this in reverse. I'm gonna take the indicator I have and copy paste it. Now it goes into the system. Here it shows numbers, but if I run it, okay, there's an error first. So if I get rid of this, and now if I run it, this will clear because this is a output. See, it says output array. It even says that. So okay, it's retaining its value. It doesn't matter. Anyway, so we connect this to that, and now what's gonna happen is we're gonna insert our number 234 in this case at a position. Which position? At position 2. Where's position 2? 0, 1, 2. And I'm gonna run it, and there we go. 0, 1, 2. So now everything else has moved 1 square, as you can see, and this was inserted. It was forced into the position 2, right? We can force it at this position if you guys want, at position 6, just to keep the code kind of interesting and keep it updating itself. And we can keep doing this throughout this tutorial. There we go. So now we have an array with a new kind of system. Now the last thing in this set of systems is the delete from array. And again, that works exactly the same way, except that the functions are a little different. So if we look at this, this is what happens. We have 2 outputs to start with, right? And we have a length and an index for each one. And then again, you cannot, okay, not again, but you cannot do multiple deletions, like you can do multiple insertions or multiple replacements. You have to do deletions one by one. But deleting is very interesting. The way it happens is you specify from where and how far. Literally, that's how it works. So the default is last element and length 1. So basically just the last element. Now, you could do this in many different ways. And I'm going to do this on the side. And let's say, okay, I want to delete from the, let's say, the second number. And how many numbers do I want to delete? Now, obviously, 1 is to delete itself. So I want to delete, let's say, 4 numbers. Now, it comes up with 2 added things. It gives you an array with the deleted part, and it gives you the deleted part on the side. So if I create an indicator here, and if I create an indicator here, let's see what just happened. So now, this one, and I'm going to try to get the sizes right. There we go. And then we have the deleted part. Right? There we go. And I'm going to run this, and you'll see what happens. So it took this array, and what we did was we deleted from position 2 4 numbers. Right? Let's go back outside. There we go. So what we did is we deleted 4 numbers. So here's position 2. Remember 0, 1, 2. And we deleted 1, 2, 3, 4. So we deleted these 4 numbers, 23, 34, 23, 2, 34. So now they were deleted from the equation. This is the new one. So it comes 234, 324, and then jumps to this position. And this is the deleted part. The 4 numbers we deleted are right here. So that's how that works. Now, if I did not give this any input at all, delete, what it does is it defaults on last element 1 number. Obviously, more than 1 number on last element is useless anyways. But that's just what happens. And the deleted portion, as you can see, it's giving me an error. And the reason is that the deleted portion is now just 1 number. This is not an array, this is just a number. So it's just going to tell me the number that was deleted. I'm going to make this smaller just for... And then run the code. There we go. So it deleted the last number, which was 234. Which was the number that we replaced here. We replaced the 234 into this. Here, if you remember, we added the number at position 6. We added 234 again, and then we deleted from here. So what we did was pretty awkward. We deleted this, and we added a second position 6. I hope this explains this first part of these. This gets easier as we move along. Alright, so let's just throw this on the side for now. I'll just leave it up here we're done with it for now. Next thing is initializing an array. And this is to create an array. This creates an array, and I specify how many dimensions by moving this down, right? So this here is a 2D dimension, this is a 1 dimension, and so on and so on. I'm going to do a 1 dimension. Now, dimension size, it tells me how big do I want it in that dimension. So let's say I want just 4. And then element, it fills so here's a representation. This one, if with size 4, this is 1 dimension. Size 4 brings you up 1, 2, 3, 4. And then what do I want to fill it up with? I'm going to do a constant now. This could be a string, but I'm going to do this now. And let's say 5. And now if we create an indicator for this, what we're going to end up with, and this is a new thing down here, is going to be, and I'm going to make 4 squares here are going to be filled up with 5. There we go. We just initialized, we just created an array of 1 dimension, and the dimension is 4. The size of that dimension is 4, and they're all filled with 5s. I hope that makes kind of sense here. So that's what we just did by initializing this array. Now the next thing is this building array, and I got into it briefly, but if I am to double this up, right, so I'm building this with itself. Now I could build this with another version of itself. I could build this with something from up here. It does not matter. In this method, it creates a 2D array, right? So in this method, what ends up happening is it creates a 2D array of 5 and 5, right? In an alternate method, if I were to do this, and again I'm going to do it this way, what I would end up with, if I do concatenation, they come one after the other, not one on top of the other. It's very important, and I think it's pretty simple to understand how they come one after the other instead of one on top of the other. So here it's 5, 5, 5, 5, and the second one comes on top of it, while here they come one next to the other. So here's the first 5 and then the second 5 next to it. The next thing is an array subset, and this gives me a part of an array, not the entire array, a part of it, and it becomes easy and difficult depending whether you're doing, everything I've been doing up here is 1D. This all could work with 2D just as well. Now, if I connect this to a 2D array, it will automatically give me this, as you can see, and I cannot further stretch this anymore, but it gives me all these settings, because here's what's being asked of me. First, the index, then the length, and then the index and the length again. Now remember, the columns at the bottom and the rows at the top. So I need to tell it, okay, which row and how far, and then which column and how far. In our example here, that's just too simple. But in a more complicated example, this would make a lot more sense than the way it is now. Let me go ahead and do something really quickly, and I can go ahead and explain what I'm doing, hopefully next time, but not this time, because I don't want anybody to get confused by what I'm doing here. So let's do this, and then let's do this, 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 that, and then this. I believe that should do it. And let's do create constant 10 and 10. There we go. Again, I will explain all this. Well, first of all, I hope it works. Pretty sure it should work, but hopefully it'll work. I'll explain all this. I'm just going to combine it all up. If I'm not mistaken, let's create an indicator here. This should create a 2D array that hopefully will be interesting to you guys. There we go. Let's make this a little bigger. And again, I'll get into how I did that when I get to functions. But there, you guys get a preview, if you will. Perfect, that's what I wanted. So there we go. So now I just set up a system that goes from 0 to 9, and then the numbers add up all the way up to 18. And I'm going to use this 2D to demonstrate this function. Now this is much easier to understand. If I connect this to a 1D array, it's very straightforward, just like our deletion. Instead of deleting it though, we're bringing it out without the delete part, right? So it remains in the array. That's exactly what's going on here. Let's move this somewhere to the side. Let's get this up here. Again, don't worry how I did this little part here. If you want, look at it. It's pretty straightforward, but I'll get into it when I get into functions. So what this does, what our function here, array subset, does is it takes an array, and as we said, where you want index and how long. Right? By looking here, it's already starting at 0. I didn't start it at 1. So if I want from index, let's say 3 to 5, that means I want to start at index 3 and go 3 numbers. Right? So let's go ahead and say index create a constant, in this case 3, and I want it to go a length of 3 as well. Remember, oh, I'm sorry, this was the row, not the column. Right? You have to keep that in mind. So I just decided on the row. So row 3 and 3 of them. So 3, 4, 5, these 3 rows. And let's say I want this 6, 7, 8, 9 part, the last part from 9 to 14 for the column. So 6, 4. So the index for my column, I'd like this to be 6. And how long? I'd like it to be 4 numbers long. And you will never forget, you don't need to memorize these, because when you click on this, it's right there. It's right there, the array from index 0, length, rest of it, and then I do that again. All you need to remember is that the column's at the bottom. That's all you need to remember. Now, the output, and I'm going to create an indicator. to show you what we just outputted. Hopefully it's the right thing. What we should get out of this is going to be this, from number 9 to number 14. That's what should come up over here. There it is, from number 9 to number 14. We just cut this part out of this array, and it's right there. Right? Very, very simple. Now, next thing. The next thing is the maximum minimum. And that's very easy. There we go. Now, as you can see, prior to connecting it, what you see here is orange lines that say max value and max indexes right here. Right? Now, when I connected this, as you can see, they just changed. What was this change? First, if you look at this is a number. This applies to a 1D array. So if I connect this to our initial 1D array, they just all become numbers. Oh, there we go. But when I connect this to my 2D array, something a little more advanced occurs. These are now arrays as well. And that's simply because there's an X and Y system going on. Now I'm going to do this. What this gives you is the maximum value and the maximum index. Index is just position. Here, the position of this maximum cannot be determined by only one number. So it needs to give me more than one number, right? So here, in this array, 1D array, oh, sorry. In this 1D array, the maximum number is, I think, this one. But this is a 1D array. If I tell you where is this, what is the position? The position is going to be the maximum minus the size minus 2 in our case. But it tells me where it is. Now here, this is my maximum. So my maximum is 18, the max value. But where is it? It has to tell me it's on column 9, row 9. Right? So that's what's going on there. So if I go and right click max value, create an indicator. What is the max value? And then I'm going to create a indicator for the index of it. And then I have the same thing for the minimum value, but I'm not going to do it now so I don't complicate things. So this is an array, this is just a number. If I run it, as you can see, it's telling me the maximum value is 14. What? Oh, it's doing this one. Okay, perfect. That's even better. So it's telling me that the maximum value is 14. And where's this position for it? It's telling me the position's at 2, 3. Now you see how complications occur. I know that I've told you that column comes first, but look what happened here. It tells me 2, 3. The index of it is 2, 3, not 3, 2. It gave me the row 0, 1, 2, row number 2, and then column number 3. So keep an eye out. Always test these things but while doing your code, because they get very complicated and very annoying. Right? Because as you can see, it just gave me the row before the column. And I don't know why it did this. Remember when we cut this? We cut on the top part, we cut the row, and then on the bottom part we cut the column. That is actually what just happened right here. Right? It's giving me the numbers in the inverse order. So this is the column, just like, and I know I'm complicating it, and I really wish I wasn't, but we know that the row and then column comes last. That's what happened here. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Alright, I'm going to move these under this subpart, and let's see what else is there. Finally is the reshape array. The reshape array is a very powerful tool. What it does is it literally, as simple as it sounds, it reshapes an array. Any array you give it, right, can be reshaped into whatever dimension you want. And now, if I create this output, and now I basically told it, okay, reshape it into a 1D array. And that's pretty straightforward. And so, okay, here's another thing. It gets very annoying because it asks me what size I want. Apparently, it doesn't do it automatically. So let's say I want 10 numbers, and then run that. Here it is. What these numbers are these numbers here. So if you follow the count, I'm gonna move this here to follow the counting. So 9, 10, 11, 12 till here, and then 10, 11, 12, 13, and then 11, 12, and it stopped. It doesn't go all the way to do the whole thing. And that is rather annoying. I really don't like it. How you could come around this, I do not know, to get it to automatically do this. An easy way that I just thought about, if we get an array size of this. Now the array size is going to produce in a array, right? And let me just show you this array. Let me show you what I'm doing. So here's the array, right? And if I run this, the size is going to be 3 by 4, right? Now all I want to do is I want to multiply these two numbers by each other. There is a function in the numeric called add array elements, and there's one called multiply array elements, and that automatically does this for you. So these are things you'll need to know. So if I multiply them, create an indicator, what I should come up with now is the number 12, obviously. 3 times 4 is 12, exactly. And this is 3 times 4, so it's simple math. And then I just take this number 12, and I'm just going to delete everything else and put it into the array size of this 1D array, right? And now you'll see why it's asking for the array size. It shouldn't when you tell it you want 1D, because there's only one way for it to work, but it does that anyway. And there it is. There it is. It shows me all the numbers now automatically. Now if I were to give it a bigger number than the number that it needs, right? So let's say I put in 15. It's going to add the rest with zeros. See, it added this rest with zeros. So there we go. So now what does this function help us with? Well, this is to reshape the array. So if I were to use this on this 2D, and if I told it, okay, I want a 2D array, not a 1D array, and I want the number of columns to be 2, right? I'm not sure if this works. I'm hoping it will. Let's see if this will work. No, it will not work. See, it will require me to do the 2. So what I would need to do is, you have two options. One option is to give it a crazy big number, which you definitely don't want to do, because it will go into your RAM and it will take it up. So if I do that, I'm going to build up this 2D. I'm going to show you what's going to happen now. There we go. It's a 2D column, right? From 9, 10, and then goes all the way down to 10 rows. And it rearranged this, so it's 9, 10, 11, 12, 10, 11. How could you know where to stop? Well, that's pretty easy. All you would need to do is, instead of doing this, I would need to take the multiplication that I did, right, earlier, and divide that by the number of rows, and that should give me the number of rows that I need. See how simple that was? And now let's run that, and piece of cake, there it is. It's done. It's so simple. Now what if you have an even number, right? So I'm gonna go back to the code, and here I know I put this length at 3, but what if I set this length to 5? And you will see an error go on, and run it. So as you can see, this is 4, I'm sorry, I need it to be a 5 by 5, there we go, which can't be at 6, so it needs to be at 5. There we go. Now, and I'm gonna stretch this further down, it is missing a number. Do you see that? It is missing the number 16, because the number 16 cannot exist. Because the number 16, because let me show you why. Because this number has a decimal. So let's open that. Let's look at this number. It's right here. And this number has a decimal 12.5. And 0.5 is rounded down. Okay, it just takes in 12. So what I need to do is I need to add another function here to round the number up. And I know I'm doing a different palette here. I'm doing the random, but you can round. This rounds, as you can see up here, the number will come up. This rounds to nearest, does normal, so 5 will round up. This does to negative infinity, this does to positive infinity. So this rounds up, basically. That's all it does. It just rounds up. So I want to take this number, I want to round it up, always round it up. I'd rather have an extra 0 than lose data, right? So now I'd rather have 16 0 than lose data. There it is, 16, 0. And that's how that works. So that completes the second row of the array. I'm hoping that these are making sense to you guys. Yeah, we'll go over the next one, and then I will not go through the rest, just this next one. But as you can see, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's very simple, very, very fast understanding to get that. But I'll do it on our next episode. Bye, guys.